Hi, everyone. Just yesterday, we released a great podcast episode with Anshu Mor. Anshu is a corporate executive turned successful stand up comedian. Suman and I really enjoyed the conversation with him. So we thought, we'll sit down and do some reflections and share them with all of you.
Super. Yeah, even I really enjoyed the conversation. Uh, when I reflect, the first thing that comes to mind is seizing the moment. I think that's how he phrased it, right? He went and saw a movie, which was Tamasha. The next day, he left. Uh, might seem too rash and too impulsive. And he, in fact, mentioned that. And he said, I would not advise other people. But, when I was reflecting on it, I think there is something to be said about being decisive. And I've noticed this with a lot of people. Uh, they're important life-changing decisions they can take almost spontaneously. Yeah. Because one is, I think it talks a lot about clarity in their head as to what is it that uh, they would like to do or want to do. The fact that there is not too much overthinking, there's clarity, there's thinking. He mentioned, in fact, he talked about the circumstances might change if he had decided to take another couple of years. Maybe they were given him more money, maybe he would have got promoted, and that would have changed everything. Yeah, so I think that was very interesting.
I think what I liked related to that, Suman, what is that he was looking always for signs around him, what made him happy, or in fact happier. So he saw within his own behavioral patterns and traits that bringing humor into conversation was something that made him happy or happier in pretty much every situation, and that was quite inspirational. And that that he felt that a zillion ideas come to people all the time, and you turn around and always think of an idea and then say, what, I'm really busy with this or busy with that, I'll think of that later. And then the idea kind of goes to somebody else and you lose that opportunity. So seizing the moment, seizing the idea, actioning on it seems to be a very, very important thing as far as that is concerned. Another thought, was very interesting, kind of related to this, is that passion is could can really be about traits, not really about a particular job or a particular activity. Like in his case, the trait of creating humor, being humorous, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's very important to test that out, see whether you enjoy it or not, and not necessarily jump into it wholeheartedly. For him, being making people laugh, being on stage was a massive trait that he kind of quickly seized upon and decided being a stand-up comedian was for him.
I completely agree. In fact, we are hearing this word called job crafting. I think this is a good example of job crafting, where you don't start with the job in mind. You start with what is it that you enjoy, what are the traits. And he was very clear. He said, you know what, I wanted to make people laugh, and I love being on stage. And those are the two things kind of which came together very nicely in this job of a stand-up comedian. So that was
And
again very
what's
interesting.
what's amazing about that is that when you're doing something for yourself, that's a crafting that you can do for yourself. It's very difficult to do that in a corporate infrastructure or or an ecosystem which is not defined by you. So that as a second innings kind of parameter, that's easy to do if you're doing it yourself. Difficult to kind of create the structure for yourself, but can be
Hmm.
done.
Absolutely. So for me, the key takeaway is figure out what is it that you enjoy
Yeah.
doing, and I think that's been kind of a lot of our guests have said the same thing.
Mhm.
The other thing which was interesting is about vulnerability, and frankly, I realized after talking to Anshu is that job and the vulnerability is at a completely different level. He used words like shame, humiliation, right? I don't think
Absolutely.
in a normal job you kind of face that kind of thing. So it's all about resilience. It's about bouncing back. The fact that he could immediately get back on stage, the fact that he wanted to get back on stage,
Yeah.
um, you know,
Yeah.
that
And
was something.
you make a damn good point, someone, that putting yourself out there in front of, even if it's a small crowd where you're trying to make them laugh. I mean, I cannot even imagine how much trepidation you would feel while doing that, right? So, and what is incredible is that Anshu also mentioned that one of the things he would advise people is to put yourself out there more. So not only was he putting himself out there, he also felt that he could have done it even more than he did. So that vulnerability is a crucial part of bringing yourself into a second innings, is the way it seems to be showing up.
Yeah. And to me, vulnerability is basically nothing more than just showing up.
Yeah,
You said it was a lot to do with luck, but luck only happens when you're having that humility and the vulnerability to show up continuously.
yeah. The next area that he talked about a lot, and it was a very interesting. It's been mentioned different ways by different guests of ours, but he used the F word, which is fear, and he said that fear is good. And so many situations he felt absolute raw fear. And I remember you asking him in that conversation, Suman, that at which point in his journey did the fear actually go away? And when did he get comfortable with the fear? And to quote him, he says, the fear never leaves you, which is an
Yeah,
incredible thing, because all of us feel that as the journey goes along, maybe things will become easier, and it'll become easier to face certain consequences. But if you can accept and get comfortable with the fact that the fear never really leaves you, and you can use the fear to fuel yourself, to give yourself impetus to grow as in your second innings, that can be an amazing achievement in itself.
totally agree. And in fact, when I'm thinking of that, the thing that resonates is he kept talking about being real, isn't it? And I think the two are kind of interlinked. Being real, being authentic, being who you are, right? I think the sheer grit, I think all of that becomes very important.
Yeah, and through the process, and I guess that's part of facing the fear also, Suman, is that you need to be real to yourself. One is being real
Yeah,
with the outside world, right? What you see is what you get and all that. But
correct.
sometimes, there is a tendency to be real, yes, with everyone else. But what about being real with yourself? Being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? This is who I am. This is what I want to be. And this is where I'm going. And I'm happy and comfortable with it. And in any case, everyone's journey is their own, right? It's very difficult to have a situation where my journey is comparable, better or worse. I mean, the moment you start doing that, frankly, in a mindset sense, you're back in the corporate world where you're kind of, measuring against benchmarks of sorts. Instead, you need to be real to yourself and go where you're going rather than worrying about where is it in comparison to others.
Great point. Being real to yourself.
The other part, I must admit that one of the areas that Anshu very passionately spoke about, because he obviously took the plunge in a very big way into a completely new space as far as life was concerned, was that of a safety net, right? And he felt that he was willing to give up everything. He was willing to not have a safety net at all, because he felt that if you have a safety net, then the fire in the belly kind of almost reduces. The level of fire you need to actually achieve what you want to in terms of your passion, and his passion in his conversation was obviously very, very strong, cannot come through if there's a safety net. That was something that he felt very passionately about.
Yeah, in fact, he only introduced that word. We were talking about something related, and he said, "Hey, safety net." Then he said something very interesting. He said, a lot of the decisions that we think of that needs to be made when you make the transition, EMIs to pay, and this and that, more tactical stuff. Uh, but this is way bigger. This is way brighter. This is about finding the magic, isn't
Yeah.
it? And if you have so much of a safety net, what happens is then you don't have so much fire in the belly. It's kind of uh, takes you away from that magic, isn't it?
Remember in the conversation, someone he said something about, if you ask yourself, am I willing to lose everything on this? And the answer is not yes, then don't do it. Now, that's a very high bar. And I remember us talking about it in the episode that it's a very high bar. But, that's his bar, and something that's worth looking at. This was really cool. Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed this reflection piece.
Absolutely. It's also great learning for us. I mean, I took away so much stuff from that discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
So
think
yeah, let's keep doing
it's
this.
something that people will appreciate. And I mean, I think the only thing we'll end with is, everyone, you should go listen to the episode. It's episode number 11, and you really enjoy it. Anshu comes up with some great nuggets. We've really only touched upon a few of them, and we look
Yeah.
forward to having you listen to more episodes.